Parole Officer Wangerton. Today is Friday, January 4th, 2025. This is the Public Act 23-169 hearing is headed for accordance of the rules. For the record, Mr. Best is being Connecticut passed and made effective October 1st of 2023, the Public Act 23-169. The act concerns parole eligibility for an individual serving a lengthy sentence for a crime committed before the individual reached the age of 21 in criminal history record erasure. You fall under this act, and this means that you are under the age of 21, that the board shall give great weight to the diminished culpabilities of juveniles as compared to adults, the hallmark features of youth, and any subsequent growth and maturity you've displayed while we are reviewing you for suitability today. Following board members are present this afternoon, and by stating their names on the record, certify they've reviewed all statutorily required documents in preparation of this hearing.
Nancy Turner, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Joy Chance.
Good afternoon, panel member Rodriguez.
Also present this afternoon, we have Attorney Kelly Pettit. Attorney Pettit, if you can please state your name, juris number, and business address for the record, please.
Good afternoon, Kelly Petit with Kirschbaum Law Group. My juris number is 442065, and my business address is 935 Main Street, Level A, Manchester, Connecticut 06040.
Also present today, we have State's Attorney Maura Coyne. Attorney Coyne, if you can also please state your name, juris number, and business address for the record.
Good afternoon, Maura Coyne from the Bridgeport State's Attorney's Office, 413-916-1061 Main Street, Bridgeport.
Thank you. And your juris number, please.
413-916.
Also present today, we have Office of Victim Services Advocate, Ms. Baskets. Mr. Best, can you please state your name and inmate number for the record?
Leonard Best, 296765.
Thank you. This is a public hearing in accordance with Chapter 14, Freedom of Information Act, Connecticut General Statute 1-200, which applies to this procedure. Mr. Best, if you have any questions concerning the above, please bring your questions to the attention of the panel at this time. Again, this is a public hearing. Mr. Best, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, and are you willing to proceed with the hearing at this time?
Yes.
Thank you. So previously indicated, this is a Public Act 23-169 hearing. It's being conducted in consideration of the parole application for Leonard Best, inmate number 296765. Mr. Best is serving a sentence of 27 years flat with no probation to follow for assault in the first degree, criminal weapon possession, illegal possession of assault weapon, and weapon in institution. There is victim input in this case. There's also a offender accountability plan in place that has been reviewed and shows that he has completed programming such as anger management, alternatives to violence, Tier 1, understanding and reducing anger feelings, Tier 2, raising fatherhood, voices, and good intentions, bad choices. He also reportedly completed shadow work in Prison of Peace. He's reportedly participating in CPAR's Recovery Coach Academy, mentors youth at NYI, and maintains job assignment. Utilizing the statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score on the RT falls in the moderate favors for assistance. Mr. Best, this is now your opportunity to express in words why you believe you should be granted parole, and you may begin.
Before you do, Mr. Best, we have the 3-page letter.
Yes.
So was it your intent to read that to us? Because we've read it.
Okay.
So perhaps the most salient points to put on the record would be your opening 2 paragraphs, and then we could move into the questions. We only have 90 minutes for today's hearing.
Okay. Paragraph you want me to say?
First 4 paragraphs, should say.
Okay. Good morning, honorable members of the board. Thank you for allowing me the privilege to speak today. The most important thing I will say today is how deeply sorry I am to Officer Jesse Pizarro, the Pizarro family, and the Bridgeport Police Department. Words cannot fully express any apology I make here today, but I offer you my wholehearted, sincere apology. I know my words aren't enough to prove how remorseful I am. That is why I have done everything in my power to become the man you see before you today. With time and grace, I have come to empathize with the pain and suffering I caused Officer Pizarro and the countless people who continue to love and care for him. I can only imagine the emotional and psychological trauma he and his family have endured at my hands. I pray their pain has become bearable over time. Also, I'd like to acknowledge the Bridgeport Police Department and apologize for my lack of respect and recklessness. Not one day has passed where I have not reflected on my selfish and irresponsible actions that affected so many innocent people.
Well done, sir. And I assure you, we have read all the documents and I studied and marked up your letter, so it has gotten attention. It just seemed like the better use of our time would be to ask you questions.
Oh.
Okay,
It-
so you'll have a chance to put all of this on the record as well. Congratulations on your GED and your CNA. Outstanding. Just what we would hope that you would dig in and prepare the foundation of your future, which is what this really looks like to me. So, in your opinion, in your perspective, why did this happen?
At that time of my life, I didn't know nothing of myself. I didn't know what I had to offer the world or society. So when I ran out of that car, as sad as it was, that was my only option, was to shoot. And doing the time and putting in the work that I put in, I realized that I had an option. But I also understand that there's the right way, the wrong way, and the long way. The right way is allowing me to pull over and just give the cop my information. But would I be the man that I am right now had I did that? So I try not to question God's plan for my life. So I understand that it happened for a reason. My paths and Mr. Pizarro's paths crossed for a purpose. And it's for me to find myself and to become into the man that I am today.
What would the long way have been?
The long way is what the long way is what God allowed me to take. Because the right way, I don't know would I be the man that I am right now. The wrong way, I could have died. So God allowed the long way where I can go through the tough terrains of life, all the loved ones that I've lost, sitting in prison 21 years, enduring all these things that I've endured. I had to go the long way. He saved me for a purpose. So that's why I believe God gave me the long way.
So you were in possession of these guns because a friend asked you to hold them.
Yes,
and then asked you to bring them the guns. Is that correct?
Yes, they left them out my house.
Uh-huh.
And
well, you allowed them to do that.
Yes, yes.
But have you ever heard from these friends again?
Not one.
Okay, so they didn't put money on your books and come visit you in the facility, look after your family while you were locked up?
None.
Okay. All right, so what did that teach you?
My mother was always right. My mother always warned me about chilling with certain individuals, and I didn't want to listen to my mother. But I come to find out that my mother was right. Mama is always right. She wasn't misleading me. She was just trying to guide me in the right direction and wanted me to be a good man of substance and purpose. But I didn't want to listen to it. I didn't want to reason with that.
She also wanted to keep you safe.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. This is, I'm sure every mother's nightmare. So have you had experiences there in the facility with others where you thought this was somebody that respected you, that considered you a friend, and had similar misplaced loyalties? And how did you deal with it?
I take pride in mentoring. And I was telling my lawyer earlier, a friend is someone that's going to always tell you the right thing. I can't be your friend and coddle you and tell you what you want to hear. I have to speak the truth to you, because if not, my story could be their story. So if I can stop somebody from having my story, I've done my job. So I have an obligation to tell the truth, whether they like it or not.
So the work that you do at Manson Youth, this is through the Embrace program?
Yes.
What is the message, if you had to boil it down to its basics, what's the message that you're giving those that you are meeting that are walking the path that brought you here?
That life has consequences, that you must be the captain of your own vessel, your own ship, your own mind, body, and spirit. You can't let nobody run you. So I try my best to let them know that if you don't take control of your life, this could be the outcome.
What do you get out of doing that work?
It's very fulfilling. It's just a sense of, it's my debt that I'm paying back for what I've done to Mr. Pizarro and the stain that I've left on my community and the shame that I brought to my family name. So I find great pride in just being of service, being selfless for once in my life.
And that's what you've done with the CNA program. Were you doing hospice work there in the facility?
Yes.
So can you talk about how that has also been part of your effort to make amends?
It's sad to see individuals that I played basketball with, and in the instant that they get some grim news that they have cancer. That's the thing about life. Life is just like that. Life changes. Day in and day out, you get some news. So just to sit with an individual that I played cards with, now I'm bathing them, I'm feeding them, I'm changing their diaper. It has brought a lot of respect to myself to know that this could also be me. So being able to take care of these men and restore their dignity that they have lost. Because don't nobody want anyone to change their diaper or have to bathe them, but we all may have to go through that. So I try to put good positivity into the atmosphere so that if it is my turn and like somebody's willing to take care of me and deal with me with compassion and empathy at the end of my life.
So you had to have gone through some sort of process there as you matured to humble yourself to do that kind of work.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of incarcerated people who wouldn't consider work of that nature. So can you talk to me about the process that you went through, that this was a path you chose? Because let's face it, you could have worked in the kitchen.
Yes. To put some context to it, my shift came back in around this time in 2019. And I was mediating a situation between two young individuals. And one of the individuals didn't like what I said. And he told me to F off and invited me to his privates. So I just walked away. And I came back to the situation and I chose to use that as a learning lesson to teach him that you have the power of life and death in your tongue. That someone you're going to say that to that has nothing to lose, it could potentially hurt you. And I told him I'm quite frankly tired of disappointing my mother, that my mother can't come visit me because I'm behind this glass. So I had to start thinking not just for myself, but I also had to think for him also. So I chose that moment right then and there to speak and uplift this young man, but not knowing that a crisis was going on in my family that very morning. So I went and locked up and they popped me out later on at 3:30 and told me to call home. And I called home and they told me that my mother was in ICU. So everything that I knew right there, I just cried like a baby because everything that I'm doing right now was to make it back home to my mother. And now my mother's in ICU. So my shift and my change came when I got the news that she was passing and it was inevitable. And they brought me down to Bridgeport to visit her. And I got to see compassion and empathy at the all-time high with these officers as they took these belly chains off me and they took these black box off me and they allowed me to walk to my mother as she was there taking her last breaths. And I held my mother's hand for the first time in probably 20 years. And I held her in, and I told my mother that for whatever I do from this day forth, I'm going to do something for you. I'm going to make you proud. And that was my shift. 2019, around this time, that I knew that I was never going to let anyone dictate my spirit or interrupt my soul and who I am as a man.
Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Best. Very moving. I'm glad you had that epiphany. And I'm sure your mother's proud of you. So, in addition to your high school diploma and your CNA license, you haven't had a DR in 8 years. You've served as a mentor both at MYI and in the Tier 2 program. You have prepared yourself to assume a position when you're back in the community in a hospital setting, providing care to others, and continuing on this journey. I'm really not sure in my time here at the board that I've seen someone who has made more of an effort to give back. And I hope that Officer Pizarro is listening, because I know that has been a source of inspiration for you, is wanting that officer and the Bridgeport Police Department to know that you are more than the criminal act you committed back in 2004. So you had a very limited criminal history, but you were out messing up. You know, you have an evading charge, you have a running from the police charge, you have larceny 1. You know, so that path needed a major interruption. I'm sorry for everybody for the shape that it took. Because I can't imagine what it was like for Officer Pizarro to face the prospects of losing the career that they invested their heart and soul and their identity into becoming an officer. So perhaps we'll hear more about that as the hearing goes on. You know, I noted that you were on transitional supervision, and within 33 days you had these guns. So, you know, the choices were concerning. And, you know, you have 24 disciplinary reports for this period of incarceration, the last 2 of which were for fighting, and 6 total fighting DRs. And, you know, that gives us pause, because it's like, what the hell? You're doing the same thing in the facility in a structured, controlled environment that you were doing out in the community. You know, have you not gotten the message? But I think you've shown us that, as I wrote down from the documents I read, you moved from being a follower to a leader to a mentor. Tell me what Ice the Beef is.
It's an organization out of New Haven where former incarcerated are basically doing what I'm doing here. They're going to the core of the issue. They're in these cities and talking to these young kids and trying to prevent this violence that's going on in our cities.
Are these interrupters?
Yes, you have to get to them before my story is their story. So that's what this organization is about.
Yeah. Did they focus on the aftermath of the shooting and the prospects of retaliatory shootings?
Could you say it again?
I'm wondering if this program focuses on the aftermath of a shooting when the risk is highest for there to be a retaliation in the form of another shooting.
Yes, yes. Also, CT VIP does the same thing. It's Connecticut Violence Intervention Prevention. So they do the same thing, and I'm in contact with that group also.
Keep doing that. Because, you know, we're talking about a case from 20 years ago, what you were doing,
Yes.
and I'm hard pressed to see change. You know, in this position, you know, it's as current as, you know, individuals coming before us who were sentenced in 2023, you know, out in the illegal possession of firearms. And, you know, in far too many of the cases being willing to discharge a weapon. And we hear about people who are, you know, in the drug trade and they're carrying a gun to protect themselves, their drugs, and their money. And they're acquiring these guns in the street and they have no idea how to handle them. And that puts the entire community and our law enforcement at great risk. So with all of that said, Mr. Best, you were willing to shoot at a human being. And at sentencing, you referred to your crime as a mistake and an accident. You said you didn't try to shoot and you didn't try to kill the officer. And I'm going to put it to you that if you're in possession of a loaded firearm and you aim it at another human being, there's your intent. That you're willing to put your finger on the trigger of that gun, come what may. Any thoughts about how you describe this crime at sentencing and maybe any changes to how you think about it now?
I've had much time to really reflect on it. And as I put in the work in, I realized you were totally right. I had no business with it, with those weapons. And to even think that I was going to get away was foolish of me. I should have just did the right thing. And it
Out
took
of the car and
it took this long process. It took this to happen to me, to be able to realize that my actions do have consequences to them.
so beyond the consequences, talk to me about intent and the formation of intent.
I didn't realize what I was doing in the moment at that young age, but me knowing that I had an option, I didn't use the right option. So just firing and doing that was unacceptable. That was very unacceptable for me to even do that, because that's not even who I am as a person. Although as misguided as I was at that young age, that still wasn't my nature.
So oftentimes people in your situation that come before us run and they throw the gun. They throw it over a fence. They throw it under a bush. It's very rare, in my experience, 8 years on the board, that you turn around and you fire the gun at the person pursuing you. So why do you think you did that?
I couldn't tell you an answer that would make sense. I was just reckless. I was just very reckless.
Well, I also read irresponsible and cowardly.
Yes.
So, but you agree that this was not an accident, not a mistake.
No.
Well, thank you for walking with me through this deconstruction of the case, because, we get snapshots of it at different times. We get the initial police report that we read the pre-sentence investigation, we read the sentencing transcript, and it evolves over time. And I can appreciate the self-serving nature at sentencing of saying, oh, I didn't intend to kill anybody. I didn't intend to shoot that weapon. And yet, with reflection, maturation, and the growth that you've done, I think you can appreciate some of the criminal thinking or the fallacies that were informing your statements leading up to that point in your incarceration where you wanted change.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you talking with me, and I need to allow my colleagues the same opportunity. So I'm going to pass it on to Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chairwoman has done a lot of good questioning for you already. You've answered a lot of my questions that I would have had. Your story of how you got to the shifting of your behavior and who you are around your mother was very, very powerful. And I just wanted you to know that. Absolutely, it seems that you really, I was not expecting this individual coming into this. And you've really done a lot of work and made a lot of different kinds of amendments and have given back. And I do know Ice the Beef. I know that they do good work. So I know the organization. So I don't really have any questions for you, Mr. Best. Thank you so much for the work that you have done, and good luck to you. Madam Chair.
Ms. Chance?
So I'm gonna say, Madam Chair, you asked 3 questions, which is what I had, but I want to go back and ask Mr. Best. So you said programs improved your character. You used to be a follower. Now you're a leader, a mentor. And what I want to ask you is, when did that occur to you? Because it goes back to the decision you made when you turned around and fired at the police officer. So which of the programs that brought all that awareness to you, or was it more than one?
It was tier 2 really touched me. I had a privilege of working alongside Mrs. Jacqueline Gordon, who was the addiction service counselor. And this woman was amazing. She come in, day out, and she just made a change. She didn't care who came. If it was 2 people in there, she was gonna call. And she called on me faithfully. And I went 5 days out of the week to set that room up with her, and she just drilled into me just things that I knew I needed to hear, these positive aspirations that I know I can get to. And she truly believed in me, and I never wanted to let her down because as much faith she put in me. So I knew I had to do everything that I had to do to be the man that I know that I could be, because she truly believed in me, and she told me every time that we sat and talked.
And so how do you think that you can give back in the name of the victim in this case? How can you demonstrate to him when you're back in the community that you have truly changed, your character is different, and that when you go back and look at what that decision that you made, you knew it was a poor decision. So how can you go out and demonstrate to him?
Continue my
Go ahead.
Continue my outreach. I have a great calling on my life. I know that God is guiding me. He's kept me all these years. He's motivated me. I've never drank in here. I've never done any type of drug in here. I know that this is a place for me to continuously to uplift myself and build my structure from within. It's one thing being locked up physically, but to be mentally and emotionally and spiritually locked up, I can't allow that. So I have freed myself in those three aspects: mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And that's going to allow for me to go home and transcend that into my community where I can be of service.
And if I remember correctly, so when you go back in the community, are you going to, I know you said that your father is ill now and
Yes.
your sister is in charge of all its medical. So are you going to go back and work as a CNA to take care of your father?
Yes, I currently have the plans for that, to be his full-time caretaker. He's 83 right now, so I understand that it's going to come a time when he's going to pass, but I have other opportunities to work in hospitals and in care services when that time comes.
And, you know, my other question was where you were gonna do your volunteer work, but you have indicated where they are. Now, you're currently in CCAR. When do you finish being a recovery coach, or do you have to continue that in the community?
I would have to continue that in the community.
Okay. I don't think I have any other questions because you have certainly, you know, have a lot of different options for if and when you go back in the community. And I know you talked about possible employment at Hartford Hospital or Yale New Haven. So you seem to have that pretty much worked out. You also want to go out and be a recovery coach. Now, to be a recovery coach, does that mean that, because you have not talked about how you're going to address your addiction, so do you have to also have a relapse prevention plan?
See, coming home, I know that there's still work done. The thing that is, I have everything figured out. I know that's foolish. I know there's more work to be done. I have counseling that I still have to do. There's things that I'm still dealing with eternally that has happened to me in here that I know that I have to get therapy for. So it's just one day at a time, just gradually, continuously finding myself as the man that I am. So it's just one day at a time.
Right. I just want to make sure that a lot of times when people say, you know, you want to be a mentor here, you want to go back and be a recovery coach for other, and you know, there's a list of 10 things for them, but there's to do for other people, but nothing for themselves. And so I just want to make sure that you have identified personally what you have to do in order to take care of your needs first.
Yes. So I'm doing that too.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm all set, Madam Chair. Thank you for answering my two questions, Mr. Betts.
So Mr. Best, you wanted to go to your cousins in New Haven. Are you aware that your cousin is not able to sponsor you?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have a secondary sponsor?
Yes.
Who would that be?
My cousin Felicia Peterson.
And where does that cousin live?
She lives in Bridgeport.
Okay. And your dad is living where?
My biological father is in Bridgeport. And
And
my foster father is in West Haven.
Okay, and who is the one that is ill
That's my foster father. He's in West
in
Haven.
West Haven? Okay. So as the caregiver under the program that's in place for family members, you would live there?
I would be able to take the train back and forth because my sponsor is in New Haven, is in Bridgeport.
Okay. All right, and you might, under supervision, be able to change that.
Okay.
I was pleased to see when you had named your New Haven cousin, because I really think you need to stay out of Bridgeport. And my other question, between CCAR, and I know you've only been in it a month, and Tier 2, as well as aftercare, I'm wondering what you learned about PCP, because you identified that when you were interviewed by Officer Wangertsman as your drug of choice, and something that, you picked up between the ages of 11 and 13. That's incredibly young. What did you learn about PCP?
How it distorts your mind and it causes you to do all type of things that you normally wouldn't do. I've seen individuals that have eaten brain and killed people on PCP. So I'm glad that I wasn't far off as these individuals that are sitting and writing.
Right, but you were using that drug every day.
Yes, and I didn't lose my mind.
Even if you didn't start that till 13, you committed this crime at 19, almost 19. So that's already, perhaps it didn't become a daily habit until a little bit later. But why I'm asking you is because it's not just the power of what that drug does when you're under the immediate influence, but it's important for you to appreciate that that drug does permanent damage to the structure of your brain in ways that your brain cannot recover. So it's incredibly dangerous to pick that drug up. And we don't even yet know what the long-term impacts as we age are on people who are chronic users in terms of dementia and Alzheimer's and things like that. So it is one of the red flags for me when I see that. It causes great concern because it's so highly addictive and it is so destructive to the structure of your brain. So I wanted to make sure you appreciated that as you look at your own recovery issues. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So at this point, we're going to turn the hearing over to the Office of Victim Services. Ms. Vasquez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and board members. I had the opportunity to speak with the victim of this case, and he wishes for me to read this statement on his behalf. And it reads like this. Good afternoon, board members. If the corrections facility and you, as the board members, feel that his rehabilitation is to be a positive one, that he is a changed man, and that he will be a positive person to society, I am okay with him being granted parole. However, if he hasn't changed at all and still has the same mindset, I will let you decide at your discretion. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is all that I have for this case.
Thank you so much, especially for all your efforts today.
You're welcome. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I want to take a moment, Mr. Best, to reflect on what you just heard, because you have been given grace. I fully expected that officer to oppose fundamentally your release. And I'm hoping that the officer has listened to the hearing and knows that we make, with great confidence, acknowledgement of your rehabilitation. And these are efforts that were self-guided. So take a minute and appreciate that, because it's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thank the officer for that profound position.
At this time, each of the attorneys will be afforded an opportunity to make a statement. We'll begin with State's Attorney Coyne. If you have any statements or comments you'd like to make, you may do so now.
Thank you. Members of the board, the state just wants to make its position known. We also had contact with Patrol Officer Jesse Pizarro. He retired last week. He did want the board to also know, he's been in contact with our office today. He's aware it's going on, but he lives in pain every single day of his life. His right leg was struck by Mr. Best when he was at a fence and turned around and there was no way out. He couldn't get over the fence in time, so he turned around and he shot him. He's very lucky that he shot him where he shot him, because we probably wouldn't be here today if he'd shot him in any other position, an artery and a heart. So in some way, where you shot, the location, it saved you, and you're here today, as well as this officer, so he could be there available for his family. But he has a titanium rod in his right leg that he has had to endure. Every single day you've been incarcerated, every single day he's been in pain. So there's been suffering, even for the victim, at no fault of his own in the line of duty. I do find what Ms. Turner was stating as well, the mercy that he showed is admirable, but that's what I expect from my experience with law enforcement. They are noble. They do want the best for these people. Even when they arrest them, I never see ill will when they come in here. It's always noble, wanting the best for them when they are incarcerated or when they're released, because they don't want you back into prison, nor does the state of Connecticut. But I just had to add that because he is in pain and he's now going into retirement. And as all of us know, as we age, all those issues just get worse and worse as we age in the elderly, because all of us have cared for elderly parents and we know all the aches and pains that occur. And he's had to endure this even in his young years. I do want to highlight the drug addiction. It's a big concern for the state of Connecticut. You were up to 5 bags of PCP. You had self-reported that to the parole officer. I recognize that you have self-reported as well, that you didn't access anything in the prison, which is great. But I do agree with Ms. Turner that there is more addictive principles and properties associated with addicted PCP. And I am not in any way taking away from the horrible circumstances in which you endured as a child. It is horrible. It is tragic. It is trauma. It is everything. But your circumstances also led to a really bad decision, and it impacted many, many people. And you have recognized that here, but also one bad choice leads to another bad choice, leads to another bad choice. And my concern for you when you get out, because you haven't done any of that treatment, even in prison, to identify the psychological aspects of that addiction. And we deal with a lot of PCP addiction in this office. It concerns me because I don't see a system set up when you get out to keep you from those risk factors, because we want you to succeed. We really do. And another thing that was inconsistent for the state, when I was reading what you reported to the parole officer, you said, I don't want to go back to the old neighborhood. That's your north end. That's where you were living, but you're coming back to Bridgeport from what you've just stated. I don't know how that's possible. I don't know how you come back to Bridgeport and you're going to avoid the old neighborhood. I hope you do, but this is not a massive city. And it's all the things that you're fearful of. And I do believe that you are sincere when you say it, but all those risk factors that you're talking about are sitting right here. All of them, the people, the addiction, anything that you associate with all that negative stuff and all the amazing work that you've done while you've been incarcerated. I just fear for you that you're putting yourself in a higher risk situation. And I agree with Ms. Turner that I was relieved when I saw the New Haven, and then I saw that that wasn't a possibility for you, which I thought would have been, just from the experience I've had, I thought that would have been a better fit and less risk. The 27 DOC tickets, I think it's great you haven't had one from 2016, but who knows, what types of psychological things were coming off of a 5-bag day of PCP. I mean, usage, that's a lot. And from the time you started taking it, I think you told the parole officer was 11 and 13. It's unbelievable, honestly, what you've endured. But also you made poor choices too. And I guess that's my fear, is that you've got fighting and disobeying direct orders, and it's all like combative and non-compliance, even as early as 2016. So I have to put that on the record as well. I recognize you were 17 years at the age of the crime, but you had an entire decade of drug use, which is unreal. But I would say that also remorse and words of remorse and things that you do in a restrictive setting are great. Making amends, I think some of the board members have said while you were in prison. But the real test of demonstrating remorse, in the state's opinion, is what your future holds, is what you're going to do and your actions that you take with that remorse that you feel, how you've stated you've impacted society or the victim. And I'm rooting for you. I am. The state's rooting for you. Also, I was actually comparing your booking photo at 17 to your photo now in your late 30s, and that's tragic right there. I was looking at this young, healthy, young man, entering prison at that age, and I found it tragic. And I just hope that there is a clear plan laid out for you when you get out. You're talking about CNA. You want to be a mentor. You want to help out your aging adoptive father in West Haven. The reports that adoptive father, you're saying foster parent, regardless, whatever, this person has a major impact in your life. I feel like there's a lot going on there, and I hope that you have the right support system set up for you to succeed. But based on the egregiousness of the crime and his serious injuries that the officer sustained, we're opposed to the modification, but I don't want all the work and the effort that you've done. I don't want you to think that's lost on the state. We're rooting for you, and I hope you do well when you come out.
Thank you. Attorney Petit, if you have any comments or final remarks you'd like to make, you may do so now.
Yes, I'll keep it brief. Thank you. And thank you again, board members, for this opportunity for Mr. Best to go in front of you today. I want to first acknowledge again, Officer Pizarro, and just thank him for his grace. I know that for Mr. Best, that means the world, even if it's not necessarily forgiveness, but just acknowledging that Mr. Best could have changed, and that, I hope that the person you see in front of you today is someone that has changed. I know that even though Officer Pizarro did not die, obviously the injuries were lifelong, whether you're going through a metal detector, trying to run, anything, everyday life is obviously affected by that. So I just want to send my condolences to him and his family, and again, thank him for his statement today. So as you see, Mr. Best has really taken the past 20 years to rehabilitate himself. He and I have had a lot of conversations about his actions that day with Officer Pizarro. I've never seen a lack of remorse from him, just in the conversations between the two of us. I think he has so much gratefulness for the path that led him to who he is today, but he's always been aware of the fact that where he is today was sparked because of the terrible actions he took against Officer Pizarro. As you know, in the packet, Mr. Best had a really tough childhood. He was born into drug abuse, prison, his father was in prison. And then as a toddler, he was adopted, but he continued to suffer abuse at the hands of his adoptive parents as well. So even as a young child, he didn't have that nurturing and that love that a child necessarily needs to succeed in the world. He suffered abuse at the hands of more people as he aged, and he eventually fell into the wrong crowd, as so many of us do. Unfortunately, he made choices worse than most of us make. But I think that it was really the root of it was a scared, angry boy who was just not given the opportunities that most of us get. And he was 18 years old, so he was an adult. But I would just, as you know, an 18-year-old often has the same characteristics as a juvenile. He was reactive. He wasn't thinking about the long-term consequences. He wasn't thinking about anyone but himself in that moment that he shot the gun. And he's aware of that now. Now, since he has been incarcerated, as you know, he's taken many programs. I think that one of the programs that he took, or I believe there were two, the fatherhood programs. I just think that it really is a testament to who he is, because he is not a father. He took those programs in the hopes that one day he can be a father. And I think that it also gave him some insight on his own parents and how some of their actions may have affected him. And it gave him the capacity to forgive them for the abuse he had endured, which I think was a big part of how he was able to forgive himself and how he has been able to grow and become the leader and the mentor that he is today. If you'll see in the packet, he was awarded the Daryl Stark Award recently, which was voted on by all the inmates within his community. And I think that, yes, I think that really speaks to who he is within his community in here. He's reliable, he is a mentor, he's understanding, all those things that you would look for in an individual who can serve their community rather than take away from it. Now,
Attorney Pettit?
Yes.
Can I just add, so
Sure.
This is an award that's voted on not just by those in the unit, but by the unit counselor and the unit manager. And it is for exhibited selflessness, assertiveness, courteousness, reliability, integrity, friendliness, intellect, caring, and enthusiasm. That's remarkable.
Yes, thank you. I think it really is remarkable, and it just says a lot about who he is. And again, he was a CNA. He is a CNA now. He became a CNA back in 2022. And I think it's something that a lot of people couldn't handle, even in prison or out of prison. It takes a special person to be able to do that kind of work. And he really, I can tell that he just is passionate about it and he loves it. And he is thrilled to be able to continue that at whatever point he is released. He does have plans to become a CNA for his father, but he also has multiple sisters who are in the medical field that are in the New Haven, West Haven area. And I've spoken with them and they have indicated to me that they are more than willing to help him find other employment as a CNA if he needs it. They also indicated to me that they can offer him rides in between New Haven, West Haven, and Bridgeport. Unfortunately, the home that he was going to live in New Haven, she is not able to sponsor him. But I did speak with his cousin Felicia, who is in Bridgeport, and she indicated that he can live with her. And I know ideally you would like him to stay out of Bridgeport. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a family member in New Haven willing to house him right now, but I think that he has indicated that he has no desire to interact with the people that he used to interact with. Obviously, if he were to come across them, he could say hello and just go on about his day. At least for me, I don't see him having any desire to go back into that environment more than he has to. He also, so as for substance abuse treatment, I had Dr. Frazier speak with him and draft a report that was included in his packet. And Dr. Frazier provided him with information about enrolling in not only therapy, but also substance abuse treatment. And that's at the Cornell Scott Care Center, I believe, which is in New Haven. So he has contacts for that. He's planning to set that up as soon as he gets out because, like he acknowledged, it's an ongoing process and the rehabilitation does not stop once he gets out of prison. He knows that he has a long journey to go, but he's ready for that next step if the board is willing to grant that today. Finally, I want to note that I met Mr. Best about a year ago. He truly is a humble, passionate just caring person. Everything that he says is intentional, and I can really see that he cares about his community so much and about affecting that change in his community, because for a long time he was not doing that. And I think he's really found himself, and he wants to give back to the community that he once took from. So I would just ask the board to grant his parole today. I think that he's a perfect candidate for it, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, so if you'll all just give us a few minutes to discuss Mr. Best's case, we'll have a decision for you shortly. So I began on this journey, and you know, I read all the documents and found myself impressed by Mr. Best, and I am pleased to say that I'm not disappointed. And in addition to the grace that we've seen from the victim in this case, I want to acknowledge Attorney Coyne, because her words were very powerful and respectful of the efforts that you've put forth, Mr. Best, and she has thrown her support for your success behind you here at the hearing today, and I appreciate that, those remarks, and I hope that you appreciate her consideration as well. So, okay, getting back to our deliberation and talking with my colleagues. So, you know, 24 DRs is not just a few. And I know that Mr. Best came in at a rather young age, and we often see that settling in process, especially, you know, when you're not even 20 and you're facing 27-year sentence. You know, you can really give up hope and give up on yourself. And there may have been some of that in the beginning for Mr. Best. I think what really stands out for me in this case is that he, as I read, felt very strongly that he wanted both the officer and Bridgeport police to see that he was worth more, that he wanted to, in his own ways, make amends and gain their respect as somebody who could take a very difficult upbringing and senseless series of bad decisions and turn his life around. And I think we see that in Mr. Best. I could not be happier for him that he has found a vocation that speaks to him, that is rewarding, and that will help so many people out in the community as it has there in the facility. It wasn't an easy choice, I imagine, to navigate towards caring for those who are with compromised health. And he did it in a way, as he talked about, that restored their dignity. And that means a great deal. He's earned his high school diploma, CNA certification, and I agree with his attorney that he's ready for the next step in life. I think he's heard lots of admonitions and cautionary statements today from several different people about the power of addiction and his need to be mindful and actively working on his recovery so that he can achieve the things that he wants to in life. And so I say that very enthusiastically, I am voting for Mr. Best to be granted.
Madam Chair, I'm also going to be endorsing that as well. Discretionary parole today for many of the reasons that you've just outlined. have just stated his maturation, his program participation, how he presented himself today, the fact he's given back in the community he's in, the victims, race.
Oh, that was huge for me.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
huge.
So I am absolutely in favor of his discredit parole. The comment he made about having to build himself mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, I thought was significant for me as well, that he could be able to do that now. I feel that way.
Ms. Chance.
So I absolutely agree with both of you. I truly want to commend the state's attorney, Attorney Coyne, because two of the very factors that he talked about was his addressing his own substance abuse was also a concern to me. And another concern for me was victims' input. And I am sitting here, it was just so unbelievable that the victim had the courage to write such a statement showing his support for Mr. Best today. And I just cannot thank him enough, because it speaks volumes to where the victim, even the state's attorney, and our panel today is on the same page about Mr. Best, about how well he has done. And, you know, I was fine with him going to New Haven, because that was the original sponsor that he had. So expressing a little bit of concern about going to Bridgeport and hoping that that will be addressed sometime after. But he has done exceptionally well. It's very rare that I come in with a grant, because I've never done that with a 23-169, because there are always issues and concern. But even with coming in that, I wondered what Officer Pizarro was going to say, and hearing from the state's attorney. So I'm just expressing my appreciation to the state's attorney and to the Officer Pizarro. And, you know, to thank his attorney for saying the same things that we have said today. So, Mr. Best, I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And I will add to that we wish Officer Pizarro a long and enjoyable retirement, and thank him for his service.
I will be calling him after, so I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have no contact with this co-defendant, and no contact with the victim in this case. And I'd like to place Halfway House in the event that it's needed, because the latest sponsor is not yet confirmed.
Yeah, sounds good.
And I'm happy for Mr. Best that he will turn 40 out in the community. In
Yes,
a little over a
very
month.
soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, very soon.
Okay. So in the matter of Leonard Best, inmate number 296765, there's a motion to grant parole on or after today's date of January 24th, 2025, with the following conditions for your supervision. Halfway house placement if needed, no contact with the victim initials JP, and no contact with your co-defendant Errol Johnson. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Good luck to you, Mr. Best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.